What is a substance of concern? This question will be answered today with CropLife SA joining us in studio, and we would like to welcome Roleen. Roleen, welcome. Answer that question for us. What is a substance of concern?
Thanks, Lisa. Thanks for having me. So substances of concern are products that are currently being phased out, and this is agricultural remedy products, and it's defined in the regulations for agricultural remedies that were promulgated last year in August. So essentially, these are products that has the inherent capacity to cause harm to humans, animals, or the environment. And it's defined in the annexure of the regulations as products that has the capacity to cause cancer, mutagens, and reproductive toxins. And then it's also products that are regulated under the Stockholm Convention, which are products that are persistent organic pollutants, and also products that are regulated under the Montreal Protocol, which are products that deplete the ozone layer.
So what does the regulation state about these products?
So as I said, essentially we are busy phasing out most of these remedies. So the regulations state that the registrar cannot approve registrations for products that meet these criteria from the 1st of June 2024. And he can also not renew any products that were registered that has these the capacity to cause harm that fulfills these criteria. So the nice thing about the regulations, it also gives the opportunity to the registrar to fast-track any registrations of products that could be viable alternatives to these remedies that are being phased out. And it also provides the option for a derogation. So if there's specific instances where we don't have alternatives, then we can keep it on the market for specific uses and for a specific time period.
Is this in line with what other countries are doing?
So yes, it's very much in line with what other countries are doing. So the wording in our regulation is very much aligned with that of the EU. So it's exactly the same what the EU is doing.
Mm-hmm. If these substances are of a concern, then why would there be an option to apply for a derogation?
Very important question. So to understand this is we have to look at the difference between a risk and a hazard, and also the way in which these chemicals are regulated. So essentially when we look at the criteria provided in the regulations, it mostly just provides information on the hazard of the chemical. So this is the inherent capacity of the chemical to cause harm. For example, if you look at a match and it has the inherent capacity to burn, that doesn't necessarily mean that there's a risk that your house is going to caught fire if you have matches in your house. So when we look at risk, then we take into account the exposure and the hazard. And if we can minimize both the exposure or the hazard, then we can minimize the risk of using a product. And then an important point to take into consideration is the way in which these products are regulated. And essentially, it follows what we refer to as the precautionary principle. And this means that we have a blanket ban on the chemicals because we are uncertain about the impact that it could have, and therefore we're taking a precautionary approach, banning all of them and saying if you want to keep it on the market, you have to prove that you can use it without significant risk.
So you need more research.
Yes.
In that process. Talking about process, what is the process for derogation in South Africa?
So the regulations state that you have to, there's certain criteria that you have to comply with in order to be able to apply for a derogation. And then if you apply for a derogation, you have to conduct a risk assessment that you have to take into account all of the uses for which you are applying to keep the remedy on the market. So what's important to note that it's not for all uses and for all trade names. So it will be trade name specific and for specific uses. So you won't keep the product with all its label claims as it is currently. You'll only do certain of those essential uses, and for that you'll take into account those uses in your risk assessment to ensure that you can use it safely. That risk assessment then has to be made public, and the public is then allowed to comment on it. And then you will take all of the data and information that you've gathered during that process, and you'll apply for a derogation at the registrar's office, and they will then decide, depending on the data, whether you can keep it on the market or not.
Roleen, there are a few products currently that I'm aware of that is of concern. Can you talk about a few?
So some of these products are, for example, mancozeb, that's used widely, especially in citrus, for black spot control. Glufosinate ammonium, which is a herbicide. There's various fungicide products that are also on the list. So the registrar did publish a list that is publicly available. It's 28 active ingredients. So it's quite a few. And we're not applying for derogation for many of them. And like I said, it is use specific. We also circulated at the beginning of the year a list of all of the uses for which registration holders would be applying for derogation and which of the products will be phased out.
Mm-hmm. So where are we now in this whole process, and what will eventually happen with these products?
So because the registrar cannot approve or renew remedies after 1 June 2024, which has already passed, essentially we have a year up until 1 June 2025 to either phase out remedies for which we are not applying for derogation and there isn't essential uses that were identified. And it's important to note that we consulted with grower associations to determine which uses are essential. So it's not just any essential uses that you decide yourself. So the products that are not essential are being phased out. Some of the remedies which we are applying for derogation would be in the phase of conducting a risk assessment, and I think most would be completed. So what's coming up is probably the public comment period. So we will have to advertise that in the newspapers for the public to comment. Some of the remedies are identified as substances of concern due to co-formulants and not active ingredients. And those registration holders are busy changing their formulations, if possible, so that it's no longer a substance of concern. So those products would likely stay on the market. But the rest of the products they're currently being phased out, and they will be off the market by 1 June 2025, as we can't keep them after that date.
Well, Roleen, thank you for sharing all that information. I think if you have the bigger picture, you understand a little better. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Roleen from CropLife SA, shedding some light on substances of concern.